Also, high cost,
We
we're gonna
didn't
have to
really
do
have,
21 days off if we can't provide
Just heads up, Becky and Amy are both out of the office space. I'm trying to do everybody's job. Anybody who wants to help me with minutes, super. Yeah. And everybody signed in on their way in? Yeah, probably except me. Good. So, first order of business would be roll call and approval of minutes. I think with the sign in, we'll just work that way if that's okay with everybody. I would take a motion for the approval of the minutes of our November 10th, 2022 meeting. So moved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is our public comment period. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Audrey, can you hear us on there?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no requests, I'll close that section and we'll move onward. Next item of business would be the designation of our LEPC compliance inspector. We have utilized Wisconsin Emergency Management as our LEPC compliance inspector. I would encourage us to continue to do so. I would take a motion to that effect. So moved. Second. Any discussion? Sorry. Any conversation, any discussion on that?
I think the only discussion would be it aligns with what's going on in Calumet and Outagamie counties as well, so. It doesn't make sense to have to appoint our own and send them to the classes and those kind of things.
I agree, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion will carry. Next is the update of the LEPC bylaws. Amy emailed these out a few weeks ago. I have copies if anybody wants to see them or review them.
Also, their electrification, thank you.
I used to, but I actually read them. The only real changes in the bylaws this year that we worked through were date changes. So no real proposed changes to the actual document. Thank you. Everybody's had an opportunity to review the bylaws. I would entertain a motion for approval.
Will we approve the bylaws as written?
Second.
Any discussion, corrections? All in favor of approval of the bylaws as submitted?
Right?
Any opposition? Motion will carry. Next on the agenda, update of policy and procedures for handling hazmat claims. Just pointed out this as well, was emailed out a few weeks ago.
Here, remember that hydrate chemical spill maybe 20 years ago, right around Christmas time?
Yeah, before my time here, but yeah.
That was the Sunday Reporter, so no Christmas Eve party that year.
Yeah.
From work,
Yeah, that was a scary.
Fell to the ground at the end of a 2.5. I was on the job for about a year or two.
or just, I don't know, in the tank one? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice that they don't use chlorine there anymore. That was a big relief valve for us. Once people have had an opportunity to review that policy and procedures, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Only discussion or question I would have is on the dispute process. It says the LEPC will review, do we have a mechanism in place for who's pulling that review, or are we pulling together a special meeting should there be a dispute?
We. Probably the only one that's here for that discussion. Maybe Janelle's. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, we discussed this pretty heavily with the hazmat team. And we kind of fell on the answer that hasn't been a big enough issue to really dive too far into it. And probably would be other legal ramifications that would fall around it too. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
But yeah, I would have had the biggest, even if that was this, you know, the two parties. So.
Right. So I think that's kind of where we ended up. I remember debating this for quite a while because we had the same question, and that's kind of where the majority ended up was, yeah, we haven't dealt with this, and Belinda was still here, so almost 20 years, and worth really trying to dive into this too much, and it's probably handled somewhere else. Any questions? Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll move on to the spill report. My laps in today. So. I don't,
Thank you.
I didn't notice anything that was, very noteworthy on this list. Kind of, the one at the bottom of the first page that I. Yes. Wonder if anybody had any information on, but just, out of personal curiosity. Second from the bottom.
You're talking on 41 in Winchester.
Yeah. Yep.
Sending guys up to one out there in that interchange somewhere, but I think it was further north. Which would have been probably. How far does your corporate back?
Should have been to no sound.
What I'm thinking of. Right. A lot of times Fox Crossing will call us. So we could have very well done either one up and the paths.
Most of these seemed pretty, normal or minor. That one's with intentional made me wonder if there was something else.
And the question I would have is I see they're using eliminate, which I don't know what that is. I don't think it's approved by the DNR to use. For it's not, I don't think it's breaking down the diesels, what it's doing, and the hydrocarbons and stuff.
I don't know a ton about it either, but I think it does kind of break down some of the bonds, so it doesn't become as harmful to the environment, but we don't use it, so I don't know what to talk about it other than.
Yeah, I doubt it's approved by the DNR for use, so that'd be my only concern, because it looks like they didn't do anything with boom or anything in the water. I mean, that fuel had to go somewhere, storm retention pond, ditches.
Right.
Our practice is we trace it, find it, hey, wherever it went. So I'd be very skeptical about that stuff, especially if the DNR doesn't approve it for use in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it sounded like at the end of that, there's some, legal ramifications or actions being taken, so I'm interested to know, maybe next time Beth will be here and we can ask her some questions. She's got that insight.
I can find out if it was one we went to. I mean, again, we would only take it to the iPads. But
Any other comments, questions on the report? All right, well, I'll keep it moving. On the subcommittee reports, education and outreach. As usual, my office is pretty busy. On an education and outreach standpoint, we hosted a Red Cross shelter training at Sunnyview last fall. Almost over 100 people in attendance. That's been something that had been kind of put off through COVID. So pretty high demand on some shelter training and cure training. We sat in on an Winnebago County emergency focused think tank through UW Oshkosh and Whitburn government. to their command post at Fox Valley Tech for some training. Becky and Amy for the Women in Safety Day with the city of Appleton. I taught a class at UVH Fox Cities. And yesterday we were at their command post up to touch a truck in Neenah. Cool new event for us. Not as cool as the fire guys or bulletproof trucks, but a lot of kids like their mobile office, so. On an exercising standpoint, we're working with Nina Menasha on their exercise EOC preparedness exercise series. We've done a EOC training and then a tabletop with each of those municipalities so far. We worked with day-by-day warming shelter, the county and the city of Oshkosh. You guys remember around Christmas time, day-by-day closed, and we opened that emergency warming shelter in their facility. So done some apps and some planning. Actually gave a presentation to the county board on Tuesday night, kind of as our end, hopefully end of that event. We participated in a regional hazmat commodity flow study and tabletop. Talk about that next. And we did some proof cog training with our county departments, something we've kind of been working on the last 2 years. This time we brought in deputies, so we're trying to create that succession planning and have more people trained up and ready to go if we need them in time of emergency. So busy 6 months for us, but it always seems busy. So any questions on any of that stuff? All right. Onto that hazardous materials, emergency preparedness tabletop and commodity flow study. There was a transition in EM in Fond du Lac County right at the beginning of the year, and they asked us to take over as the fiscal agent for this project. So WEM had a grant to do a regional commodity flow study and tabletop. So we became the fiscal agent for that and worked with the other counties in our region on this project. Most of this was all handled like through a consultant. We were just kind of the pass through of the money, and then I participated as well. Shelley, you were here for the tabletop? Her name was here.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Kevin Bowen just texted me. He's waiting in the Zoom. Nobody's letting him in.
Oh. All right, Kevin. Both the tabletop and the commodity flow study were, I don't know what they were, the exercise, the tabletop was an incident that we deal with fairly regularly because of how developed and the resources we have. So not as strenuous of testing for us as it was for some of the other more rural counties that deal with Highway 41 traffic and the things we deal with on a regular basis. Commodity flow study also, it's a starter. It's not the funding wasn't there to do it to the full extent that some of us look for, but a good starting point and starting to collect some data. I believe or hope that this will be something that they continue to fund over the next few years, so we can kind of build on what we have from the start. We don't know how state funding is, so see if that happens. I think that Amy was going to bring copies of that to share today. If you guys are interested, I can have her send that out to you guys. If people want. Any other questions on that? Next thing, one more, oh, 2 more laps around the room.
Keep it going as fast as we're going to save some steps.
That's all right. Yeah, so I'll talk about this when this goes around, and I'll have to have you guys sign in on this sheet too. This year, WEM is changing our plan of work from kind of designated deliverables to more of a, what they call a integrated preparedness plan. So instead of them telling us what we need to work on and what we need to focus on, we're supposed to work with our community partners to determine what our risks or our shortcomings really are, and then be able to gear what we're doing in our office towards the actual needs of our community. So big part of this is trying to figure out what those risks are. We think we generally have a pretty good idea of where our risks and shortcomings are, but the important part of this is getting that view from everybody else. See if we are consistent in allowing us to identify some of those shortcomings on different levels and be able to bring in training or exercising or planning to help address that. So what I'm asking of this committee and for the people online or the people who aren't here today, I will send this out by email too. There's a questionnaire on there. See, if you have your smartphone right now, you scan the QR, or I'll email the link. It's going to take about 15 minutes. It's just ranking some risks that face our county and then some additional questions on your thoughts, where we are, and what could help us be more prepared in all phases of a disaster. So we will then compile that data and utilize it to kind of prepare and plan moving forward. This is something you guys have done in health for quite a while, right, Shelley?
Absolutely.
So we're catching up with them for once.
Wait a minute, I wasn't saying the first part of that sentence.
So, yeah. So I would appreciate your guys' help on that. It can take about 15 minutes. It's a pretty easy survey, won't be like click the dots and move on. If you have any questions on that, cool. It is voluntary, but the more broad approach we can get to this, the more accurate we'll be and better able to kind of help and assist.
The date range that it's open between. Deadline.
Probably by the end of the month would be great.
Who are all the partners getting the survey? Who's your pool?
So utilizing this team pretty heavily, we're going to email all of our local emergency managers too. So that'll be a lot of our fire chiefs. And then we have a group, our co-ad group, we're going to email this out to, so we'll have some more broad community. And then we're going to kind of, there's a tab on there that lets us see what a representation is. So it doesn't say Janelle signed in, it says I am from this part of the industry or this focus for the county. And then if we're really missing somewhere, we have gaps or we're very heavy somewhere, we can readjust that. Shelley, like you're probably used to, not a ton of guidance from WEM, so everybody's kind of working together and modifying a little bit based on what they think is appropriate. So
We'll let you know if they don't like it.
yeah, exactly.
I was thinking if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because her does HVAC for regional focus pretty much every year. The healthcare systems do it every year, so I think we can bring some of that back to this committee and avoid some duplication of work. And HERC has,
Line up right now too.
yeah, and HERC has a lot of representation across different factors of healthcare and community.
Sure. I know Tracy asked me about this at one of our last meetings, and I went, "Oh, I was going to use you guys for this." We're going back and forth, trying not to duplicate each other's work. Any questions on that? On to the expert report. Becky's been working pretty heavily on these and know that she is getting a lot more of them towards the end where they'll be ready for significant submittals. So he has a total of 42 plans scheduled for this year. Minimum required is 25. 17 of these plans are already updated with filed in Wobbers. 16 of the plans, so the other plans are out in various stages of the update. 9 plans pending update for, 9 plans left. But she's at a very good place on that for being 4 months in, first third of the year.
Located.
That is near Doty Island in Nina. I'm not sure if it's on the island or it's just on the national side. It's right there on the river. Any questions or discussions on the effort? We have Kurt here from the National Weather Service today. You've probably seen his famous face on TV a time or two. I think this actually came out of that commodity flow study tabletop this week. Thought about bringing him here to show some of the things that they do for us in preparedness, a little weather spotting, and I suppose the new program you said, right?
It's been around for a while, but we're just kind of advertising it more as a resource.
Take me just a second. I'm gonna get him set up on that screen so that I can keep the zoom up on this while we rush. Stand here.
Good-ish for everybody? Great. Technology generally working, yay. Good. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm Kirk Hotenberg. I'm the warning coordination meteorologist here at the National Weather Service Green Bay. This is a talk that I usually give during Skywarn Spotter season. We won't do down my porch, I'd lead all that, but I like to start with what's your favorite type of weather? We've kind of had all of these the past couple of days/weeks here. So why are we here? So what does our warning operation look like when storms are going? What are we doing at the Weather Service? Well, we're looking for three things. One is like we know the environment. This is all the nerdy stuff that we do with our pocket protectors and calculators. So that's what we do. We also look at the radar because we're good enough as a science. We can tell like if it looks like it might be a tornado or it might be a hailstorm. So we'll look at that. And then the third thing is reports from the spotters and people eyes and ears on the field. So law enforcement, fire, any other trained spotters out there. And if we have two or more of these three pieces of the triangle, that might really persuade us to issue a warning. So the point of this slide is, not only this is what we look at, but like reports from spotters and eyes and ears in the field is literally like can be as important as the radar during storms. So it's huge. And having trained spotters is really important because that brings up the credibility of all the reports. So one report can make a difference. It goes up everywhere. So we drop the warning and push the button and boom, it goes off. And dispatch, their printers probably start going and their alerts start going off. Wireless emergency alerts, EAS on the radio, television, no weather radio. So it goes to a lot of places. And the key thing too is it goes downstream of the storm. So by helping us out here in Winnebago County, you're helping our friends out in Manitowoc County or Sheboygan County, depending on where the storm is going. If we're issuing warnings, we know it's happening, we can then warn them as well. So we typically do these talks. We like to start early mid-April. The reason is because the peak of severe weather here in northeastern Wisconsin is generally in that June to August period. In May is kind of like the on-ramp, like up we go. So we want to do it now before we're on the on-ramp and it's kind of too late. We might miss an event or two. We do have thunder possibly in the forecast for the next couple of days. So I feel like maybe we are starting to hit that on-ramp a little bit. We'll see how anything severe or not. As of right now, we don't have any severe weather in the forecast. Just maybe some rain with some thunder. So a lot of lines on this chart. The key takeaway is, if it answers a question, are we due for severe weather? Is this going to be a bad year? So what I did is I went back in time over the past 10 years and I plotted the number of warnings. So the higher the line, that means the more severe warnings we issued in a year. Usually we issue around between 80 and 100 or so, plus or minus here in northeastern Wisconsin. And so if you look at the top line here, this 2017 year, that was way more active than the other years. And if you follow that line backwards in time, it like really started in like March, April, and just basically like kept going. And then if you look at 2014, one of the least active years, that actually really didn't even go up much until June or July. And it just kind of stayed behind, like its April, May was really flat, especially compared to that 2017 year. So right now, at least to my knowledge, unless something happened since I was gone, driving from Green Bay to here, we haven't issued any warnings. So far we're zero, like we're at this flat line at this green level. Of course, like, there's some red too that kind of got in, but still, it's kind of below normal. It doesn't really get started until June or July. So fingers crossed, maybe we're looking at, maybe, we're definitely behind the pace for this 2017 year. But the way things are kind of shaking out right now, or the first couple days of May, we're still sitting at 0. So just maybe there's hope that this year will be a below normal year. Time of day. Oh, my battery's about to die. That's so sad. Time of day. Typically this 5 to 8 o'clock period. So like right when everyone's outside, their softball game, golfing, whatever you do, soccer game in the evening. That's when we see the most active severe weather typically. But there's also a little jump between midnight and 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And what's causing that jump is usually there's 2 different types of events. So the first one is like the afternoon when things are warm and the storms are going here in Green Bay, and they start popping up everywhere and they move into our area. And then for this overnight period, usually that, like the storms popping up and whatever, getting going during the daytime. For the storms that arrive during that midnight time, that storm popping up is actually taking place in Iowa. And the storms from Iowa make it all the way through La Crosse, through Eau Claire, through Madison, and make it up here into northeastern, east central Wisconsin. So if it's later, we can usually see them coming. You can watch them come across the radar for the whole afternoon, evening. Otherwise, the storms that pop up overhead here usually occur during that late afternoon hour. Something that we started last year that we'll do again this year is the wireless emergency alerts for what we consider a destructive severe thunderstorm. So on the printout, when we issue the warning and you see the printout, like the National Weather Service in Green Bay has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for Winnebago, blah, 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 blah. At the very bottom, there'll be a category that'll say base, considerable, or destructive. And if it's a destructive one, that'll blast out a wireless emergency alert. And for the destructive ones, it's either 80-mile-per-hour winds, which is like a solid EF0 tornado, or baseball-sized hail, which you don't want baseball-sized hail hitting you. So that'll blast out wireless emergency alerts. And we didn't really have this event yet, but this is an example of what something could look like. So if you're at the Green Bay Airport or somewhere in Green Bay, and your phone is going off and the alerts are going off, and you look and you're under 2 severe thunderstorm warnings at the same time, you might think like, what the heck? Like, did the Weather Service lose their minds? Like, 1 is good, I don't need 2 at the same time. But what's actually happening is this. So we have like a line of storms that goes somewhere. So, think from like maybe Appleton through Fond du Lac or something, like a big line of storms that have at least 60-mile-per-hour winds. Well, within that line of storms, we notice there's like a definite pocket or area of 80-mile-per-hour winds. So we have 2 options of the Weather Service here. We can either make the whole line of storms 80-mile-per-hour winds, because that one little area is. But the problem with that is they'll send everyone's cell phone off from Green Bay through Appleton. And say 80-mile-per-hour winds, when actually we're only forecasting 60. So in a way, like, it's kind of not accurate information, so we don't want to do that. Or the other option is to make it all 60-mile-per-hour winds and just ignore that 80, since most of it's 60. Well, we don't want to do that because we're missing that little pocket. So what we would do in this event is we'd issue another little warning just for that 80-mile-per-hour wind area, and that would trigger people's cell phones only in like Seymour, Howard, in the Green Bay area. So that's why we would have possibly 2 warnings at the same time, because we really want to give a special alert to those people where there's especially strong winds happening. And these should be easily enableable through your cell phone or cell phone provider website. So a concern, well, is my phone going to be going off every 5 seconds during the summer, because that's annoying. So in actuality, it should not be. A lot of numbers here, and it's still probably early in the morning to be looking at so many numbers, at least for me. But we have the wind speeds at the top and the hail size on the bottom. And this is the frequency of the warnings we issue that have one of these severe hazards. And so if we do the destructive ones with 80-mile-per-hour winds or the baseball sized hail, it basically adds up to about one out of 100 of our severe warnings would have this destructive tag. So that's maybe once per year. Again, our average was like around 80 or so, plus or minus. So, once a year, once every 2 years, maybe. So I feel like that's a pretty good number. Once every 2 years to be especially warned if baseball hail or 80-mile-per-hour winds are coming at my house. I feel like that's a pretty good zone to be in where we're not, crag wolf and over alerting. But definitely getting that message out there, like, hey, baseball size hail is coming, so you don't want to be walking to and from your car in the parking lot. Okay, so switching a little bit then, we have watches and warnings. Most of the people do pretty good on this question, but sometimes there is a little bit of confusion between what the difference between a watch and a warning is. So the answer is that middle question. So we issue a watch. You kind of think, watch the skies. And we try to issue these well in advance. So if like the storms are going up at like 4 or 5 o'clock, we'll try to get a watch out maybe at like noon or something like that. So that you have at least 3 or 4 hours of a heads up, like, hey, there could be severe weather. But then the warning means it's actually is happening or is about to happen. So like we're physically seeing it on the radar. So we're going back to that triangle, like the storms are in progress. 58-mile-per-hour winds or 1-inch hail or larger, so that's the size of a quarter, is our threshold for severe warnings. And then flash flood warnings, do I put that on there? Just don't forget about those. I have a little video, a couple of slides. So when people ask me like, what's the biggest thing I can do to stay safe? And whenever a television station asks me that, I always give this answer, like I'll give it till I'm blue in the face. Is it really starts before the first raindrop has even fallen. So what I do, and I tell people, is to take at least 60 seconds every morning when you wake up and you're scrolling through your phone and you're seeing what crazy things politician X said overnight, like, oh my God. Like while you're in that process, or maybe instead of doing that for sanity purposes, just take like 30 to 60 seconds each morning to look at the weather forecast. Look at our weather service website, look at your favorite TV station, WFRB, whomever, that's a reliable source. And then just be aware of the weather forecast. So if we're saying like, yep, good chance of strong to severe thunderstorms this afternoon, okay, like you're already aware of that. So that's the first step is, something might happen. Then the next step is think about where you might be at that time. So if storms start at 4 o'clock, my kid has a soccer game, like, okay, I might be outside during that. So, things might be looking iffy. Think of how you'll receive weather information. So like if a tornado or severe thunderstorm warning is issued, I'll have my cell phone with me. Good. Think of how you'll shelter. Like if the tornado warning happens all of a sudden, like, okay, like if there's a gas station down the road, I can go there. Cool. So just those types of things. Just being prepared, having a plan, and knowing before the first raindrops even fallen is really like a huge thing to staying safe. There's all sorts of ways you can get the information. Sirens. We're kind of going towards saying the sirens should be more like a backup rather than a primary way of receiving the warnings. Point being, like sometimes the sirens could fail, or it could be really windy and really raining. You might not even hear them going off. So we're steering people more towards like wireless emergency alerts, no weather radio, and internet, television, radio, those types of things. And then if you're looking at the forecast, like the spc.noaa.gov, they do the convective outlooks every day. And these are the categories. The wording's kind of tricky, don't need to memorize them. Just the moral of the story is like the high risk days, like we had Iowa at the end of March there, March 31st, where there was like 30 tornadoes or something. That's these high-risk days. Mostly in our area, fortunately, we're more down here, like pea-size scale or maybe just thunder. So that's kind of the scale and perhaps what to expect during those storms. And this is at March 31st day. The forecast is broken down. We could break it down to hail, damaging wind, and the tornado outlook as well. Because sometimes you have all three, like in this day, and things were really bad. But other days, like it might be only a hail threat, but not a tornado threat, or it's only a wind threat, but not a hail threat. So kind of helps you too to know exactly what to prepare for. But then we're also on Facebook and Twitter at NWS Green Bay, and our website here, weather.gov/Green Bay. I took this from last April, so we had blizzard warning up there, and there was actually severe weather in Illinois. It was kind of like a bizarro Picasso image there with all the watches and warnings. But if you just click on like Winnebago County, it'll literally take you to the 7-day forecast. And then we also have a weather story that'll highlight the main weather things. And in this case, in the middle of April, it was 12 inches of snow. Hey. Okay. Spotter safety. So what we always tell people is to maintain situational awareness around you at all times. Because the sky and clouds could be spinning in front of you. You don't want to get tunnel vision because something could be happening above you or right next to you. So just make sure you know what's going on. Always have an escape route. So if things start getting bad, gosh, I need to go backwards and get to safety. Make sure you have that path. Sturdy structure, avoid night chasing. For spotting, I have a video on that. That's one of the scarier moments of my life. So this is a tornado. And something else that I tell people is notice like these black specks and things flying around. So you see the tornado itself, obviously you don't want to go driving into that hee-haw. But what does a lot of damage that doesn't necessarily always get the media hype or media play is like the debris. So all those black speckled things are whatever's in the path of this, there goes the transformer. If it's picking up trees, cows, cars, vehicles, whatever have you, that's all flying around as well. So don't think like, gosh, because I'm not like there, I'm safe. Like there's still all this debris that's being lofted and can be thrown for like hundreds of feet to land somewhere, and somewhere it could be on your car. So just make sure that you keep if you see something like this, get to safety, get away from it. Even if you're not directly in the path, you could still be hit by objects. Lightning as well. We always tell people also, in Wisconsin in particular, lots of open fields out here, farm fields, things like that, especially as you venture down Highway 10. If you're on a hill, especially, or like a ridge top, and it's a farm field, and you're the tallest object around, like not a lot of trees, then guess what? You might be the best conductor. So we always say when thunder roars, head indoors. But just be aware of that lightning is a thing too. Wind safety. So this is kind of like, I always use a baseball analogy here. Baseball, the hitting the home runs is what gets all the media attention and gets all the glory. How many home runs you could hit? Instead of playing small ball and the bunts and the triples and the singles and getting runs that way. So all of the small ball stuff kind of gets a bad rap or forgotten about. So sometimes with winds, because winds isn't a tornado, it's not the tornado, the home run, the big long ball, but they still do damage. Like 80-mile-per-hour winds, whether it's from straight line winds or a tornado, is 80-mile-per-hour winds. Just like if I dump a bucket of water on my head, it's water, I will get wet. Like 80-mile-per-hour winds will knock down power lines and tree branches and all sorts of things. So just because a tornado warning might not be issued, but we would have 70 or 80-mile-per-hour winds in our warning, you should treat it like a weak tornado at least, basically, that's coming at you. So do the same exact things that you would do for that. And this is just some damage from the derecho in Iowa a couple of years ago. And speaking of derecho, if you're curious what that is, sorry, from Google, the PowerPoint, it didn't quite reach the full formatting. But at any rate, what a derecho is, the key thing is it's really long. It could like hundreds of miles long. So it'd go from like Green Bay to Chicago, basically like a huge long area. It's not just something that's going to go from Kaukauna to Oshkosh. Like it's way longer than that. And there's pockets of 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts in it. So that's a distinction of the derecho, really big, really long, really wide and strong winds versus kind of your normal time of severe storms. And to bring my point home, this is a webcam from during that derecho in Cedar Rapids. See if it works or not. It took me to a browser. Let's see. We're gonna try. And there's an ad. That might not work. That's sad. Bummer. But at any rate, that we'll get back. Whoa. Whoa. There we go. But anyway, yeah, so those trees were basically blown down by the derecho. And here, wind-driven hail is a thing too. So if a really large hail and really strong winds at the same time, this person's windows, this is a video too, they got like shattered. It's basically the hail was like just crashing through the windows there. So our biggest thing that we say safety-wise is to stay away from windows in both those strong wind events and during tornadoes as well. Because like if one of these chairs was like a giant wind machine blowing 100-mile-an-hour winds at me, like it'd probably knock me back, but I'd be generally fine. But if you were to put a bunch of glass and a bunch of objects between me and that 100-mile-per-hour chair here, that would hurt because now we have glass shards flying around and whatever else is in between that and me. So that's why we say to stay away from windows, because not the winds itself directly, but because of what the winds pick up and throw around at 100 miles an hour or however fast they're going. So we say stay away from windows. Try to get to the lowest, most interior room as possible. If you don't have a basement, then try to find like a bathroom or something that doesn't have windows to the outside. And don't go outside to look at the tornadoes too. True or false if you're in a vehicle. So this was generated from something that came out in Oklahoma like in the early 2000s or something. Like this kind of went viral or whatever, and so people started doing this. The problem is that if you well, first off, if you think of like a garden hose, so when you have the garden hose and you turn the water on and water comes out, and then if you want to shoot it further and faster, due to my sister, it is a prank. You'd put your thumb over the nozzle and like out it would go. And that's literally what's happening here, like right at the edge, is that's the same exact effect if you put your finger over the hose nozzle, because the winds have less of an area to go through, but they're still coming. So basically the winds are stronger in this spot here than they otherwise would be. And then also too, like if you block this and see there's a heavy downpour and the car is coming along at speed limit speeds, like they might not be able to see that there's a row of cars here. And obviously you don't want a 70-mile-an-hour vehicle crashing into this. That would be not good. So we say to generally avoid that. And then this really gets back to like the whole thing about being prepared, taking 30 to 60 seconds every day. Because quite honestly, if you're in a car and a tornado is coming or happening, like your options are not good. Yeah, it's like basically if Jordan Love and the entire Packers quarterbacks rosters were all injured, like what are you going to do? Like, I don't know, it's not going to be good. This is pretty much that same premise. And so this is what a tornado can do. This is like a really, really weak tornado. Like very small and, not all that big, but I can still do that to the vehicles. So like that's pretty crazy that a weak tornado can do that. Like imagine what a strong tornado can do. So, this starts ahead of time so that you're not in a vehicle during a tornado. So it all starts with knowing if a tornado is coming, having ways to receive warning information, that type of stuff, because again, it's just not a good thing. Rain wrap tornadoes are also possible. So on this image up here, this is like the rotation. So where the reds and the greens are next to each other, that's where the spinning is. But the radar image on the left, like there's rain all over the place. So basically you can't see what's happening. And I don't think that video is going to work, but that's fine. Basically these people are in a rain wrap tornado and like it's downpouring and they can't see. Then all of a sudden a tornado comes across the road, and fortunately they were far enough away from it, but like they didn't know it was coming at all, and it almost would have taken their vehicle and off it goes. Here's that tornado safety video. So one of my scarier moments in my when I was my younger, wilder days, we went chasing for college each year. We told the rental companies that it was career networking. So we went career networking across the country to where there could be severe weather. And so one of the things we did was a nighttime chasing. And the only way you can see tornadoes at night there is like in lightning flashes. So like there was a lightning flash. And so basically the next thing you have to do is there's a lightning flash. You have to like have a mental picture of that. And then you have to wait for the next lightning flash and think like, did that tornado from a couple seconds ago get bigger? Because if it did, that means it's coming at me. Because you can't just sit and watch it move. So you have to wait for lightning flashes to see like how the tornado changes every couple seconds. And so so that's pretty nerve-wracking when there's an actual like tornado like that on the ground. I'll play it one more time, this time in full motion. So I always tell people like don't even bother going out during night. Just stay safe. And then flash flooding is also a thing. I have a slide on that coming up. Yeah, so there's your tornado, and that's all you can see of it. So I think this next one's that flash flooding slide. Yes. So this was in Iowa 2013, so a while ago. But something else to just watch out for. There's the tornadoes and the hail and everything happens, and everyone kind of lets their guard down, like, okay, that's better. That's all done and fine and gone. But behind it, if you're out on the roads, there could be flash flooding, especially if it's like a big rain downpour type event. And so here is a local law enforcement officer. In a little bit, he's going to turn to the right. Fortunately, the officer is fine because I know this is a really grainy video, but there's actually another squad car somewhere in here, so he's able to see him really quickly. Right there, yeah. So, we say turn around, don't drown. If you can't tell how deep the water is, just find a different route. Here comes this turn to the right. And you can see how quickly it goes from like being fine and driving to literally upside down and not driving. So fortunately that vehicle was there, the squad car was there to help them out, because otherwise, it went from 0 to bad in a hurry. And this was during the daytime. So nighttime is when most flash flood fatalities occur, because people they do that more often because they can't see how deep the road is. So just something to be aware of, be careful about if you're going to be out and about, especially like gravel, unpaved roads. What you're used to is maybe a gravel road could be like a big pile of mud kind of type road. So just watch out for that. And then we'll never deploy spotters. The Weather Service will never say like, hey, you go here, you go here, you go here, and let us know what you see. Like, we'll never do that. Really quickly here, how to report. The WHO helps, because if you're a trained spotter or law enforcement, that helps give your report a little more credibility as part of that triangle. Just what you're seeing is best that you can describe it, the nearest town, city. And getting to safety too is recommended. So like if you're, in a if hail's falling, like don't run outside to pick up a hailstone to call and report us. Wait till the hail is done or wait till you're safe. Same thing with a tornado, like, get somewhere safe first and then tell us like, yeah, I saw this 5 minutes ago, like that's totally fine. When giving us hail reports and other reports, try to use common objects. Like we start with the coins, like a dime, penny, nickel, quarter, $50, golf ball, because a golf ball is a golf ball, they all the same size. Things like marbles up there in the upper left, they come in different sizes. So if you tell us there's marble sized hail, like I might not know exactly what that is. But if you say there's nickel sized hail, like, okay, that makes more sense, or that's a little more standard thing. There are a boatload of ways to report, social media, Facebook and Twitter and email. You can all attach pictures or video through those methods. Otherwise, you can call our office. There's an online link to reporting as well. So many ways to report, whatever is easiest for you. Getting into the definition, so a couple more videos here. The definition of a tornado. So especially here in Wisconsin, they're not always that like picture perfect tornado like you would see on the Weather Channel. 3 questions to ask yourself if you're curious what you're looking at is a tornado or is it not a tornado. First off, it has to be vertically rotating. So if you think of like a figure skater spinning around and like pulling their arms in really closely, like that type of spinning to where they're going really, 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 really fast and it looks different than everything else around it. Is it connected to the cloud base? And can you see dust or debris on the ground? That third one is a really big question to look out for up here. So kind of where we don't have all the picture perfect tornadoes. So in this case here, we have that funnel cloud. It's clearly rotating. It's clearly attached to the clouds. And there's the debris. So even though like the tornado condensation funnel it's called, like if you think of like a straw isn't going from the cloud all the way to the ground perfectly, like there's this gap here. This is still a tornado. There's still debris and there's still trees and everything being flown on the ground. So this would qualify as a tornado. And if you make a report to us, you can tell us like, yeah, I don't see the condensation funnel, but I see debris on the ground. Like that'll help us with the report also. On this one here, so again, kind of ask our questions. Is it attached? Is it rotating? Yes, but there wasn't debris on the ground. So this would be a funnel cloud because we did answer 3 or check all those boxes. Here's a video. This one won't work, unfortunately. But if your question is, can there be more than one tornado at the same time? Here you go. This was in Iowa in my backyard. I have a video on that at the very end. But there's debris here. These are both tornadoes, so absolutely that is something that's possible. There's these things called scud clouds, and we see these. Is this another one? The veil's not going to work. That's another one. The veil's not going to work. That's sad. But we see these with like every storm, and the key thing is like they're not attached to the cloud base. They're kind of just floating around. And sometimes they'll move kind of towards the main cloud usually, or where the weather's the worst is where they kind of start to drift to. But the key thing is like, look at our checklist. It's not connected to the cloud. It's not vertically rotating like the figure skater, and there's certainly no debris from it. So those are not tornadoes. We have video here. So this is a wall cloud. So we've probably seen these, and you can feel free to report this to us. And so in this case, it's rotating, but it's not like that crazy figure skater. It's more of like a broad broad rotation. So that's a difference. Like the funnel cloud is much more narrow. And that would often fall out of something like this. So if you see a rotating wall cloud, and this is all connected, like this is all connected part of the cloud. Like this usually means really, really bad, severe weather. You can hear the sirens going off in the background. So the weather service certainly saw something. The environment is bad and we're seeing this rotation that could probably drop a tornado at any time. So that's what this feature is. This is a shelf cloud. So notice how the wall cloud is like compact and covers a small area. These shelf clouds here, these are with that big line of thunderstorms, like a derecho or like a normal line of thunderstorms. And these are the things that look like the alien spaceships coming. Something to note with these is, play this video. So if you see in the bottom left, the time says it's 6:12 when this happens. Oh man, this one isn't gonna work. But at any rate, in like 10 minutes, the weather went from just, fine, you can go out for an evening walk, to like a huge downpour and torrential rain. Here's a better photo. This is real-time motion. I didn't speed this up at all. So you can see how fast that these things can move. And, like the sun's out here even a little bit. But if you see something like this, so again, this looks like the mothership out of the Independence Day movie. This is like incredibly strong winds, like your 60-mile-an-hour winds, and the huge downpour to where like you can't see your hand in front of your face. So if you see something like this, again, look how fast it's moving, like just get out of the way, get indoors. Sometimes like these clouds are kind of doing weird things, but it's all going in one direction. So you won't see a tornado out of this typically, but you will get that huge downpour and winds and rain. So wrapping everything up here, again, create a new habit every day, 30 to 60 seconds. Look at the weather forecast. Storm Prediction Center page has all that information. Our webpage, weather.gov/Green Bay. So you can be aware before the storm. But then this is my personal thing. I'll probably include this on every presentation that I give too. So this could be during the summer or during the winter. You hear storms are coming or you see snow in the forecast. Where is a bad place to look? And because this drives me like personally insane is this one. There's a Facebook page out there. Like I don't even want to mention it because I don't want anyone to look at it. But it's like literally like probably some 20-year-old in their parents' basement. I don't want to stereotype too much, but kind of one of those versus like an actual meteorologist. And they always post like crazy things, like 40 inches of snow coming, there's gonna be tornadoes everywhere, the biggest outbreak day in the history of anything. And just like all these clickbait things that just get shared and retweeted. And somehow there's like 1,000 retweets or 1,000 shares. And it just drives me nuts. Because that's where like, the weathercasters are wrong half the time, blah, 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 blah. Like, see, you forecasted 40 inches of snow. Like, no, we didn't. Like some person in their parents' basement forecasted 40 inches of snow. We said there'd be 3. So just consider your sources is where I'm going with that. Again, the who, what, where, any damage, any flooding. But then if you don't have a way to like measure the winds, you can report like the tree damage. So, if you have 6-inch diameter tree branch, or like a branch kind of like as wide as my arm or something that was snapped, like we can retrofit that to get a wind speed from your report. So you don't have to have an exact measurement. We can kind of reverse engineer and get a report from your report. And if you do submit a report, one of these two is much better than the other. Obviously, this one that says hail in my backyard, like that doesn't tell us anything. I don't know where your backyard is. I don't know how big the hail is. I don't know when it started and when it fell. So those types of things would be nice to have. And I don't need like your specific address, but just like, Wausau, generally where you are is helpful. And then flash flooding also, just, make sure you stay safe. Don't go with a yardstick marching in the water to measure it, just to see how deep it is. Obviously that water is probably flowing and whatever pretty quickly, so staying safe is important. And so, yeah, so I'll wrap up with the video from that July 19th tornado in my backyard. This is where it started. So my backyard was actually the starting of a tornado, which was crazy. But anyways, I had a newborn and we were taking a nap on the couch. And all of a sudden I heard this wind banging on the house. I was like, what the heck? And so like, as I'm kind of waking up, I walked outside to see what it was. But then I saw like all this stuff flying around. It took me a couple seconds to realize like what was happening. But once I did, I was finally like right now, like, oh crap, like try to get inside and start moving. And so, yeah, so moral of the story is, don't, sometimes there isn't warning out, but also like if there is a tornado warning, if this were bigger, don't do what I did. Don't go look outside and try to get some video. Like, don't do don't do what I did. No, you get away from windows and stay somewhere safe. And then also make sure you follow the traffic laws, et cetera, et cetera. And then something else, especially law enforcement, to be aware of is a new kind of trend or something is a lot of like college students or younger kids, like literally are just going out now and chasing, like they'll go anywhere in the country. And so a lot of them are oftentimes driving really recklessly. I kind of follow along on Twitter and I see people trying to like, kind of check these people like, hey, driving like 80 miles per hour through a residential neighborhood is not good. Like, stop doing that. But some people are like, well, I need to get that video to keep people safe so that I can get this video and have retweets and clicks and things like that. So just be aware that there could be some, out of town maniac drivers out there nowadays. So just make sure you keep an eye on your six and all of your surroundings, because you don't know, someone's gonna come flying through a stop sign at 70 miles per hour. And then, yeah, make sure you stay safe and they will never deploy anyone and blah, blah, blah. On our website, weather.gov/Green Bay /Skywar, and there's all of these things if you want the pamphlet or this presentation book. We have those on our website there. Yeah, we're done with our talks. They were in middle April, so yay. And then really quickly too, Amy asked me to do the high split presentation. Well, I'll breeze through this. So something else we do is we can do a high split run. And weather conditions near the incident are the most important. So as meteorologists, what we're looking for is like the current winds. And then we will give you things like the thunderstorm forecast and things like that. But this is all the stuff that we'll cover. And then we'll pull from like all of like the Appleton airport or whatever is nearest. But if you have better observational info, if like someone's out there with like a wind anemometer or something, definitely let us know. But we'll try to compile as much information as we can. And so what we do with that information is we can put it into use our current weather forecast models. So based on like the wind speed and all that stuff, wind direction, we can then generate a plume for where we think, if an incident happened here. This is what I provided for Lambeau Field for their soccer game last year, that July soccer game. So and we can do this in advance too. So like for EAA, we'll probably do one of these every single day in our morning briefing package. So this would be like if a general plume were to be dispersed here, it'd most likely go that way. And the people in this area would probably especially be impacted. So if you're looking at setting up a command post or a secondary command post, obviously you would not want to put it anywhere over there. You want to keep it away. And then too, for evacuation wise, maybe we're kind of thinking like, you know, if someone's in here, that might not be a good zone to be in. So we could do that for you all. Then we could also attach like a briefing page too, to include all that information. Something we do, this is a science I will get. From the weather nerd side, we look at things like if there's an aversion, that's really important. So this is kind of why it's important too to, you know, if this is a big enough event or spill or release to at least ping a meteorologist. Because you could be standing on the ground, like winds right now are coming from the west to the east. But as you go up in the atmosphere, the wind direction could actually change. It could be a different direction. Or there could be like a cold front coming, which will change the wind direction as well. So lots of the weather factors would play into it. And then this inversion would as well. So if there's an inversion, basically what that means is whatever chemical or plume is in the atmosphere is probably going to be trapped. So won't be able to rise and keep going. So like wildfires during the overnight period, there's a lot of times to see an inversion. And so this is how like the smoke plumes just kind of look like they're staying trapped and not moving. So that's what happens there. And then we can give you the time that we're expecting this inversion to break so that perhaps the things can get out to the atmosphere more quickly. If there is a bigger, more massive release or like a plant explosion, we might elevate it to the next level. Because we're not exactly hazmat experts, so it's kind of like a staying in our lane type thing. We just kind of do weather that would go into things. So like we'll probably coordinate with the IMAC, something that FEMA stood up and has kind of worked on starting last year, moving into this year. Like we'll provide, so it's kind of like some federal partners, like you have hazmat experts and you have like maybe the DNR type people, but then weather people. And so we all combine our superpowers. And so like we'll do weather, but then the hazmat people can say like, you know, how the chemical will behave a little bit better or not, and those types of things. So if it gets really, really big and bad, call us and we'll start going up the chain. But otherwise, yeah, if it's something we'd like to plan for support wise or something that has happened, you know, that's most of the incidents are small scale. You know, we can help you out with one of these. That's all I have. Questions, comments, etc.
Great presentation. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you all for
staying awake. Good job.
In our office, we're in pretty heavy communication with Kurt all the time. He's a great partner for us, us locally. So I appreciate him coming down today.
Just one question before we adjourn. For example, having Kurt here today, in the past, we had done tours of some of our planning facilities. I know we kind of slowed that down with COVID. A lot of building staff stuff. Is that something we're interested in trying to start doing in the future? Or do we prefer this class or this style method? Any thoughts?
I can still get out if you can get places you're interested in and seeing like the fire side of things, or you know, like a planning side of or the bigger places, or just the odd places.
Yeah, odd places.
Yeah.
You don't need to see homeowners.
Yeah. You know, like
I mean, what we've done, I think where we've been. Galloway, we did the Pepsi, and when we had the railroad. We've been out by Janelle. So yeah, more of our, not sulfuric forklift battery sites, but some of the other stuff, they generally will give us a tour and then we move to a conference room or something for our meetings. I like that, but it's up to you guys, whatever.
It sounds like a new guy here. That's all I know, but makes sense to get out once, at least once in a while, I would think.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll work to set something up for our November meeting. Try to find a facility that will work. One in mind that I will want to go back. I get that, whatever. Yeah. Other than that, I guess, we can adjourn. What's there anything else? Thanks everybody for coming today.
Yeah.
But. Good.
Yeah. I'll ask them what they want. I went with this afternoon, I'm hoping